Hey everybody, Uratnik here with the Roommate Review, and it's time to talk about another episode in the life of everyone's favorite immortal. As always, we will be comparing the anime and manga, sharing our impressions, and wrapping it all up in a summary to create a nice, digestible narrative. If we succeed, go ahead and hit that like button. If we don't, leave a comment down below telling us why. But save all that for later, because right now, it's time to start episode 6 of To Your Eternity. The recap this week isn't very interesting, but it exposits that March's lingering scent is pushing Fushi onward. This emphasis is exclusive to the anime narrator and feels like a reference to the title of the last episode, Those Who Follow. After the opening, we immediately get more shots of Fushi traveling. The transformations have much more coverage, showing Fushi's actual transformation from wolf form into the boy, as well as into March. The manga simply shows panels of him being in those forms. We get an added little scene of March eating fruit in the trees. Both the manga and the anime changed the color of March's eyes to Fushi's. March moving with the agency of Fushi is a little spooky though. Instead of March's usual ray of sunshine optimism, we get this confused, silent stare, really driving home that this is not the March we've grown accustomed to, but is the March we're going to continue living with. Notably, March's voice actress plays the role of Fushi while in March's form, so it'll be interesting to hear every actor's interpretation of the Fushi character as it develops. March approaching Piran's camp gets some extra shots of Piran noticing her moving in the bushes, rather than her ghost-like appearance in the manga. Keyframes match up for a bit, but quickly break up as different angles and added shots get thrown into Piran's angry rant. The first major difference, however, is the lack of March's doll inside of the cart. In the manga, the crab March always carries with her was on the ground of the cart, resting on March's bloodstain. The anime only has the bloodstain. This is interesting as it changes the emotional context of what pulled Fushi to the cart. The rest of the scene has angle changes for basically every panel, as well as added coverage of Piran grabbing her things. The scene ends with an added wide-angle shot of Piran chasing after Fushi. The following scene opens with a different shot of the forest and provides us with several added angles of Fushi and Piran traveling. There's a couple keyframes being represented, but there is definitely more new footage. As the woman ends her monologue, taking note of how hungry she is and her inability to keep up with the tireless Fushi, we get a nice added close-up of her focusing on Fushi's thigh. We get a bit more added coverage of Piran running up to Fushi before we get the keyframe of her biting on the back of its thigh. The rest of the scene creates a bunch of added coverage of Fushi reacting to Piran, as well as a lot more focus on Piran admonishing the boy wolf girl for not feeding her. The keyframes are generally all present as Fushi transforms to escape Piran, turning into March and climbing the nearest tree. I don't know why, but I really love watching March climb. Maybe I just miss her. We get some added coverage of Piran being exhausted on the ground before she sees Fushi up in the tree, angrily eating fruit. Thankfully, Fushi seems to be smarter than March, simply eating its fruit up in the tree. I also love that Fushi just climbed a tree and started anger eating to calm itself down. We get a lot of extra footage of Fushi throwing fruit at Piran, as well as some extra footage of it climbing down from the tree. Interestingly, the Crunchyroll subs pose Fushi's "thank you" as a question, while the delivery is definitely more of a demand in tone, mimicking the first time March threw food at Fushi. The manga does not have a question mark for the statement either. After some more anime-only coverage of Piran approaching March, we get an interesting divergence in tone. The anime frames the scene as Piran graciously doting over March, simply saying, "What a good girl." The manga, however, has her saying, "Good boy, that's a good boy," framing it much more as if she were rewarding a dog. The following scene contains all of the panels of the manga, while providing a lot more Fushi coverage. Also of note, the anime refers to the distance of the next town in ri, while the manga has her say leagues. Then, Piran uses ri during the lesson proper, which is an antiquated form of measurement. We then get even more anime-only coverage of Fushi drawing and writing on the map, with the keyframes still being covered. However, we do lose this nice close-up of Fushi staring at Piran, realizing it can learn a lot from her, in favor of this wide-angle shot that I feel downplays the realization. Piran then starts teaching Fushi various words as we line up with the manga and montage. The river scene notably gets much more coverage, with a nice anime edition of Fushi appreciating water. The campfire scene also gets a lot more coverage of Fushi eating. I really enjoy its directionless thank yous to itself as it eats the fish. The anime adds in a montage of Piran and Fushi's travels between the goodnight keyframes in the manga. This does a nice job of establishing a substantial passing of time, making the transition to Fushi speaking in full sentences on the boat a little smoother. The anime also has Fushi speaking much more adequately than its manga counterpart. The manga has him speaking in sentence fragments, while the anime has him speaking full thoughts. Fushi states outright that it wants to learn and grow. The comparison to Following March is not lost on anyone. Its story of the boy is largely the same, with some added coverage of the boy's house thrown in. The end of Fushi's summary of its time with the boy sends us to commercial. Peripher really enjoys this page with the boy on top and the new lands along the bottom. It works as a fantastic bridge from how Fushi's journey began and how it will continue moving forward. We travel, we meet people, we receive stimulation. This episode has worked fantastically as an anchor, establishing that the stories we lived are always with us, but they are also over. Holding on and moving on are two different things, and Fushi is going to continue doing both. Earlier, Piran had wondered about Fushi's heart. While Fushi shares the story of the boy, it faces away and is faceless in the manga. When we see the memory of the boy, that is the face being shared. While this episode features Fushi's character in many ways, it's the boat scene and the upcoming "dunno, that was weird" bit that pair well in showing Fushi's heart. This is not to be confused with the episode's titular emphasis of Fushi's goals, whether it's Following March, the Man in Black, or the purpose of its creation. Also, while this page covers a lot, we don't know whose boat this is. That is to say, while praising how this page ties concepts together, its world building isn't very measurable, and the maps we've seen don't quite stitch together either. Both instances of maps have the character reactions to the concept of a map more so than what the maps depict. It's just interesting seeing what Oima prioritizes in her storytelling. Coming back from commercial, we get basically all brand new shots with no keyframes from the end of the boat ride. It isn't until we land that we realign with the manga as Piran informs Fushi that we are heading to her lover's house. There's extra coverage of Fushi and Piran sitting around the fire before we get our top-down keyframe of them sleeping. The route's approach gets a lot more coverage, with the keyframes of it stabbing Fushi being well represented, right down to the incredible shot of the root erupting from its face like a tree. The anime turning it into a silhouette in front of the night sky was a great touch. The anime creates a lot of extra coverage of Fushi transforming, with added close-ups of Piran waking up, as well as an added shot of Fushi staring into the woods. The root creature's reveal suffers a little bit from the anime lighting, as its bright white silhouette really leaps it out of the nighttime scenery in the manga. Also, I don't know why, but Dog Fushi is way more buff in the anime here than its manga counterpart. I mean, holy crap, he's nearly twice the size! The appearance of the Man in Black is excellently executed, with the time freeze being much more apparent in the anime, having many more different shots and angles to show nothing is moving. I also really like the glossy overlay that overtakes the screen, and of course, I gotta shout out the electricity coating his cloak, as well as the crisp, clean sound design that is unlike anything we've heard up to this point. Just a fantastically easy way to establish incomprehensible power. None of the keyframes truly line up with the manga during this soliloquy-esque conversation, but the energy is definitely the same, like two people given a prompt to draw the same thing. Time suddenly starts up again after some friendly advice from the Man in Black, and the action immediately begins. As with all of the action scenes in this series, it is difficult to do a frame-by-frame analysis as there's just so much more anime to work with. Oima-san's panel structure during action sequences is always exceptionally busy, creating really dynamic still frames. However, the anime is able to go with a much cleaner visual design because the characters are literally able to move. That said, while we won't be doing the frame-by-frame comparison of this scene, there are still parts of it that we'd like to talk about. The dynamics at play are really nice mirrors of past episodes, such as Joan fighting to protect the memory of the boy, and Fushi now finding himself on the opposite side of the bear versus wolf fight. I wish the shot of Fushi's bear form being defeated had kept all the tree roots erupting from the top half of its torso, but I guess the censors can win this round. I also just really love the idea of March fighting Oniguma. After all the pain and sadness caused by the idea of this bear, it's really nice to finally see March stand up and fight back. Also, this shot of Otriguma digging away at its torso is the self-mutilation I crave. Such great, painless desperation. We're watching mirrored forms of dead characters battle in a distant land. Some may not have been sure about Oniguma's mythic presence, but this right here with the form-stealing root and cloaked maker crosses that line very well. As the battle wraps up, we realign with the manga on this incredible shot of Fushi's body remembering all the forms it just got back. I love that you can see the wolf, the bear, and the boy on March's body here. I also really like that the anime keeps the crab plushie visible during this shot as well. Just beautifully crafted, and I really want more transcendent imagery like this. The rest of the scene matches keyframes with the rest of the chapter, adding the occasional added coverage of someone moving, as well as slightly changing this shot of Piran asking what happened. Fushi's delivery of, "I don't know, that was weird," was delightfully carefree and lacked the doofy enunciation of its past dialogue. It worked great in both showing its improvement in communication, while also maintaining the charming vapidness we've grown to expect from its reactions. After this, the anime proceeds to skip the entirety of Chapter 14, hold for the last page, where it maintains every keyframe. Will the skipped content come up later? We're not sure, but we're definitely going to use the opportunity to say you should go sign up for Crunchyroll, where you can simply read it yourself. You can also use that opportunity to watch Fushi vs. the Root, because that actually is a pretty fun scene. And that is going to be the end of the episode. Episode 6 covered only 44 pages spanning 2 chapters. With the combat against the tree enemy taking up literally the second half of the episode, there really wasn't a lot of comparison happening here, but this was a nice exciting little tale to fill in the gap between plotlines. I'm looking forward to Fushi's next interaction now that it has a base level of communication. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, this video was written by both myself and my fellow roommate Peripheria. If you enjoyed listening to me talk to myself like this, you may enjoy me talking to myself over on my gaming channel. I even do different voices to make it sound like a real conversation. Also, we have a Discord now. We're just trying to set up a place where people can hang out and talk about the things they enjoy. If that sounds like fun, you'll find the link to that down in the description as well. Finally, Peripheria has a lot more manga content in the works, and that will continue to be uploaded right here on the Roommate Review. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of it. But until then, we'll catch you all next time. Ciao for now.